I've never been a commentary channel, but I actually found myself just kind of like reflecting on this, and I just started writing about it. So today I wanted to share some of the things that I find so impressive about Isabel's approach to creating videos. The first thing is that Isabel answers the what if question. What would it be like if I left my normal life behind to live in complete freedom? I think we've all daydreamed about this at one time or another. And watching her actively live a sustainable life pulls back the curtain on what that would actually look like to live on the land. And to be fair, there are a handful of similar simplicity YouTubers who I've been discovering lately, but as a viewer, you get to see what this actually looks like in the day-to-day. Behind the idealized daydream of our imaginations, when you see Isabel's life play out, living on the land just looks like a less conventional version of the same routine that we all have on a day-to-day basis. Living a simple life looks like filling up your water tank in the middle of winter, or it looks like spending the afternoon cooking. It looks like cleaning and working while you're spending time immersed in nature. And, surprisingly, I find great comfort in watching the mundane daily tasks play out. Not only is it entertainment, but I think we can all gain something from this sort of behind-the-scenes glimpse into the more quote-unquote ideal life. So when we ask ourselves that what-if question, what would life look like? It kind of looks like what Isabel's doing here, and it helps answer that question. Now, my second reason is Isabel has a really childlike sense of wonder and a certain naiveness that reminds me of myself when I was 22 or 23 years old.
I'm just so in love with life and this river. I'm in love with this river.
Now, maybe you can relate to this, but when I was younger, I made almost all decisions with the feeling side of my brain, giving rein to intuition instead of using logic. And as you get older, I feel like society slowly beats that out of you. But what I like about Isabel is she's still able to look at the world through this lens of just being in awe. And I really love that about her. And I'm a firm believer that in life, ignorance can be bliss. And the people who get out there and take big swings and do really ambitious things, whether it's business, innovation, or moving into the wilderness in a tiny house, are usually the people who are just naive enough to forego thinking about the challenge that will entail and just fucking dive into it, despite how hard it'll actually be. And that's the beauty of naivete. When you're young, you're willing to do more challenging and out there kind of things, and you're able to take bigger risks. And watching Isabel in this process has been really nice to see her maintain that complete wonderment with her surroundings, despite the struggle that the lifestyle often creates. Now, as a disclaimer, I don't think Isabel is naive as an insult. She's actually spoken herself about how she initially underestimated the undertaking of building the tiny house and living in the mountains, and now building the art studio most recently. But she didn't stop from trying, and I think that's pretty cool. The third reason that I love Isabel's content is because her videos force us to ask the question, could I do that? Now, many of us probably feel like we can figure most things out. Building a tiny house? Sure, it wouldn't be easy, but I could probably figure it out with enough time or energy. Cooking more whole foods? Also very possible. But then there are some things that Isabel does in her channel that stop me in my tracks and make me ask myself, is there any chance in hell I could do that? And as the viewer, we're really forced to face that question, which makes the whole thing a more interactive activity. Things like, seeing Isabel jump into the river in the middle of the winter to bath. I don't know about you, but I could never do this. Or living in the middle of nowhere completely alone. I think I speak for the extroverts out there when I say that a life of solitude would be slow torture. But seeing Isa do it as a 22, 23-year-old girl is a bit mind-blowing. Aside from the isolation, she's also developed a total lack of fear. So she has this comfort with the darkness and the vulnerability of being somewhere completely alone. This is impressive not only to me, but I would bet that most grown men would also be spooked at the idea or the thought of this. This is another example, but the time that Isabel fashioned a shawl out of bare-ass wool that she spun by hand, I was viewing this video the first time I saw her doing this, and I was literally speaking out loud to myself, being like, how in the fuck? It's the moments like that that make us ask ourselves, how long would I actually last living in her shoes? And it's really interesting to think about. In most cases, I don't think I could pull off half of the projects that she does, for sheer lack of patience alone. But it doesn't mean that Isabel and other creators like her haven't inspired me to be more ambitious and bold in my own decisions. Like this past year, my partner Alex and I bought a cabin in the woods. And buying a cabin has been a dream of mine that I've worked towards for years, even before discovering her channel. But watching videos like Isabel's every week was a reminder that I'm making the right decision in doing those things that spark joy. Even if we can't all live a fully sustainable life, we can all create our own version of a more idyllic life. Whether that means the extreme of living off the grid, or like creating your own escape like we did with our cabin series. Although it can be scary to make such big life decisions, it helps to see these ambitious life choices modeled online. 4. The slower pace of editing and capturing the beauty in the mundane. As a creator online and someone with ADD, I feel like I am always pressuring myself when I'm editing to do these really short cuts and like never keep any sequence on the screen for so long. But I love that Isabel has this different pacing with her videos, and it's very slow and it's very, she takes time to do a full cooking sequence, and sometimes there's no audio, and it's just still so captivating and engaging to watch her projects come together. My fear as a creator is always that, people will lose attention, like they'll get bored. But I love that Isabel just kind of has her own style and will capture the mundane, and it seems exciting when she's doing these things. It can make you realize that each of us have the opportunity to take pleasure in doing ordinary tasks in our own lives. For example, Isabel often films these long and lightly edited cooking sequences. And at the surface level, it's just kind of fun to watch somebody create meals using whole and bulk ingredients. It's interesting and educational even. But over time, I would catch myself making different choices in the grocery store as a result of watching this content. I started gravitating more towards the squashes and sprouts, and suddenly felt like I was ready to be more ambitious in the kitchen. And it genuinely inspires me to cook more and stop being such a lazy piece of shit who orders DoorDash all the time. Not only that, but subconsciously when I'm chopping vegetables, I feel like Isabel in her tiny house chopping up a shit ton of things to put in the pressure cooker. Because now watching myself do this random task reminds me of the vlog that I watched. And weirdly, it's given me a new appreciation for cooking. It's often thought that life inspires art, and the reverse is also true. Sometimes art can inspire life. Next is setting as a character. So another thing that makes Isabel's stories so unique is the setting in which they take place. The setting itself almost acts as a character. The mountains, the hills, and the seasons all play an integral role in the daily struggles that Isabel goes through. Not only that, but the daily rewards and the joy she gets from her lifestyle. For example, the winter environment creates such hardships and struggle for Isabel, who's in a constant state of just trying to get simple things done. Whereas in contrast, when spring comes, there's like a euphoric sense of overcoming that hardship of winter and like a fresh beginning. And that's not to say other seasons like summer don't come with their own struggles, but the environment is this ever-present force in the narrative, and it really influences the demands of Isabel's life. If you've ever seen my channel before, which you may or may not have, I've made a lot of videos about the place where I live as well, Vancouver, and I totally understand how much the setting can influence your daily life, and I really love seeing that in someone else's videos as well. Next is cinematography. So I won't spend too much time on cinematography, but I think I speak for all of us when I say it's actually quite impressive to think about the quality of videos that Isabel puts out each week. As someone who's self-taught, she shows a lot of knowledge for craft that many other young YouTubers don't seem to take the time to actually hone in on. Isabel shows a great understanding of compositions in the frames that she captures. Whether it's cooking or running through the fields or building a house, she often sets up shots that are genuinely beautiful and well balanced. Not only that, but she has a talent for creating stories with great pacing, narration, and structure. She's able to use cooking sequences, building time lapses, and montages to show you her routine. And even though majority of the time the content is similar, it always feels fresh and enjoyable to watch because of the balance of these elements. The changing seasons also keep things interesting as she's capturing the beauty of the world slowly transitioning around her. Also, props to her partner Logan, who recently started creating a lot of the original music featured in the videos. I love the moody sounds and definitely recommend following him on Spotify. But that's besides the point. On top of the cinematography, she also color grades all of the footage, which really brings everything to life. Finally, the thing that I find most interesting is that Isabel creates content in a bubble. And as someone who lives in such a remote place where there's no Wi-Fi, that means that her content isn't influenced by anyone else. It's so pure and unadulterated creatively, which is really unique to anyone else that I can think of on the platform. Isabel captures the life that she lives without considering trends or clout, which is possibly the most refreshing thing about her channel. YouTube and social media culture is an increasingly draining place, and the constant input from everyone trying to get your attention just for their personal gain is really mentally taxing. I'm sure I'm not the only one who experiences that. But majority of young people struggle with different forms of mental health issues associated with the rise of technological dependency. In contrast, Isabel shows us a world where the stress of constant connection just doesn't exist. I can relate to this because as a 20-something-year-old, I'm like one of the only people I know who refuses to download TikTok, and although I have Instagram, like 90% of the time I have it deleted off of my phone. For me, practicing digital minimalism has helped me avoid that sort of anxiety. But as a person in the current landscape, I still wonder, like, am I missing out? Or if I'm not on TikTok, will anyone even care to watch my videos? And I love watching Isabel because she really represents the counterculture of what could be in a simpler world without all of the constant distractions. It proves that you can be creative and you can tell stories that people connect with without the weird influencer mindset of always trying to remain relevant. If anything, I think Isabel proves that there's an intrinsic reward in being growth-minded instead of just being focused on the end goal or the reward. Or one last bonus reason that I'm going to throw in here is the fact that Isabel literally had a channel with almost 300,000 or 400,000 subscribers, and she didn't even realize that she could monetize that. And now that she knows she can, she does one brand deal a month or whatever. That is so pure and wholesome, and I love that. As a creator myself, I can't even say that I would be so modest, but I love that she is that type of person. Now, I'm not saying creators are better or worse for taking money or not, because at the end of the day, we all have to make a living somehow. But what I think is interesting is this foregoing of profit really just shows us that Isabel's reasoning for making videos isn't for the end result, but rather for the process of making and creating. So for all of these reasons, that's why I feel like Isabel is possibly one of the most unique creators on the platform right now, and just such a breath of fresh air. Now, like I said earlier, nobody is perfect, and we all have our different styles, and there's all kinds of different people on social media, but it's so nice to see someone who is just kind of creating in their own domain and so uninfluenced by everybody else. So I hope that you connected with that, or maybe, I don't know. I'd actually love to know what you guys think if you're watching this. Let me know in the comments. And yeah, if you're interested in cabin stuff, I also have a cabin series. A little bit different, obviously, but this was my first video essay, so thanks for watching, guys. And I hope to see everybody in the next one. Bye.